Members of the media, thank you for attending this press conference called in relation to the most recent murder. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mr. Mirfield.
Thank you very much, and thank you for attending this morning. First of all, the Bermuda Police Service would like to send its condolences to the family and friends of Colford Ferguson for this tragic death. Shortly I'll be handing over to Detective Chief Inspector Nick Pedro, who will address you directly in relation to the progress we're making on the investigation and provide you with some more information. However, before that, I'd just like to speak to the progress the Bermuda Police Service has made in the past year in our fight to tackle gun and violent crime. You will be aware that this is the first death since August last year relating to gun violence. That will clearly be no comfort to Mr. Ferguson's family, and I do not wish to minimise the impact it will have on them and indeed his friends. However, the Bermuda Police Service has made significant progress in bringing offenders to justice. I'd just like to give you some more facts just to reinforce that. Some of these facts you'll already be aware of, but it always helps to emphasise them. 6 persons have been charged with murder, and all will appear before the Supreme Court in the next 6 months. 11 people have been charged with attempted murder in relation to firearms offences. As you know, we've already received 7 convictions in the Supreme Court since January of last year, 2010. And at least 9 people will stand trial again in the Supreme Court this year for firearms-related offences. During recent trials of gun-related offences, persons have received over 60 years imprisonment for those offences, including a 25-year single sentence. Whilst I and the Bermuda Police Service recognises that it is crucial that we catch and convict those responsible for gun and gang violence, we are also working extremely hard to prevent the violence escalating and to keep our communities safe. You will know from the figures recently released by the Commissioner that we're arresting more people, we're stopping more people, and we're deploying visible uniform presence in the areas of most community tension. Of course, we couldn't do this without the support of the community. Our efforts are greatly assisted by the support of individuals who are prepared consistently and constantly to come forward and assist our investigators. It is clear that the people of Bermuda want to help the police. That indeed could be done in any way, by supplying direct evidence of a crime as it takes place or indeed following that crime, by supplying information in person, or indeed anonymously, or just by passing on personal views, which are equally important. All of this helps us to tackle criminal activity, and in particular gun and gang violence. I'd now like to pass on to DCI Pedro just to cover the events that occurred on Friday and give you a perspective of the police investigation to date.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner, and may I also start by offering my condolences to the family and friends of Mr. Ferguson. My investigative team has been working very hard with the family over the weekend to assure that their needs are met and that they've been kept up to date with all relevant information and progress in the investigation. I'll start by just taking you through the events of what has transpired thus far. At about 2:08 p.m. on Friday gone, which was the 4th of February, several calls were received through 911 suggesting that gunshots were heard in the Somerset village. The investigation revealed that persons in the village at the time went into the crime scene, which is identified at number 2 East Shore Road in Sands, and found the victim in this matter, Mr. Colford Ferguson, whose name we've already released to the media. The first officers arrived at the scene within 14 minutes of receiving the first call. The scene was immediately preserved and cordoned off for forensic examination, and in fact we continue to hold that crime scene, and those examinations even today are continuing some 3 days into the investigation. So it's quite an intensive scene exam that is taking place, which is yielding some results. Mr. Ferguson, at the time of responding, was in a non-responsive state and was subsequently declared dead by an on-duty physician. An autopsy has already been conducted by an overseas forensic pathologist, which determined that Mr. Ferguson died from multiple gunshot wounds. A full investigation into this crime is underway by the Serious Crime Unit, and a complement of detectives from both that unit and the Forensic Support Unit have examined and continue to examine the scene to collect evidence, and witnesses have been sought and interviewed. There are a number of lines of inquiry that have been carried out by the investigative team, and significant progress has been made. Officers have been in the Somerset area over the weekend interviewing witnesses and canvassing for further evidence. The investigative team, again, I can't emphasize this enough, would still like to speak with anyone that may have seen or heard anything related to this incident, however irrelevant it may seem to them. We're particularly interested in identifying a male who was dressed in dark clothing in the lay-by just east of the crime scene, just prior to the incident of the shooting, and we'd urge anyone that may know the identity or indeed that person to come forward and make contact with the investigative team. Whilst the police will actively seek out witnesses and collect all available evidence, we encourage anyone with information regarding this matter to come forward, and the information and/or evidence will be treated in the strictest of confidence. And as you know, the Serious Crime Unit can be contacted on 299-8106 or on the Confidential and Independent Crime Stoppers hotline, which is 800-TIPS. Thank you.
Any questions? Michaela from the Bermuda Sun?
Just a quick question. I'm at the scene speaking with multiple people. They said that the police did take quite a while to get there. I know you said 14 minutes, but there is a police station just around the corner. Can you tell the public why it took 14 minutes?
Mr. Mirfield?
Well, as you're aware, our police officers don't deploy from police stations. They're on patrol, generally speaking, and the proximity of a police station to a crime scene is not necessarily an indication of how quickly officers can get to a scene. And in the circumstances, the time of day on Friday, I believe that 14 minutes was a reasonable time for those officers to get to that scene. But clearly that is something that we will be looking into and ensure that if we were slow to attend, that we'll investigate the reasons why that took place. But our view at the moment is that 14 minutes is not unduly slow to get to a scene.
Brian Darby, VSB News?
Can you tell us the general scene of the murder? What was going on? Was there a construction project in place?
Yes, Mr. Ferguson was in fact working, doing construction work within that premises, which is we've identified as the crime scene.
Teresa Rayner? I'm sorry.
Can I add to that? We've always feared that sooner or later an innocent person is going to get caught up in the gun violence. Would this be, you think, the innocent case?
Obviously, the inquiry is still underway. We're very much trying to develop the motive and reasons behind why Mr. Ferguson was shot, and we're looking to determine the exact reasons behind it. So that's an ongoing process.
Any other questions? Arnold?
Was Mr. Ferguson known to police prior to this incident?
I'd like to make it clear we do not believe him to be a gang member, but certainly this crime has elements of a gang shooting. But Mr. Ferguson was not known to be a gang member as far as we can see.
So have we ascertained whether he was the target or not?
Well, the investigation is ongoing. I think I just explained that to Brian. That is precisely the type of things we're looking at in the investigation.
Ms. Rayner, BBC?
There was a name being circulated of a 16-year-old child. Was that man, was that person in any way involved in the incident?
I can't comment on this time. Obviously, we've spoken to a number of people during the inquiry, and we continue to speak to other people. We have identified and spoken to that person in the investigation.
We go to Michaela, then Sarah.
Just quickly, can you say whether or not anyone else was in the building at the time of the shooting?
Not that we're aware.
Sam Stranger, where was that?
Have you discovered who took the picture of Mr. Ferguson in the shirt that was covered in blood that was being circulated over the weekend?
That continues to form part of the investigation. So that is actually one of the lines of inquiries that we're looking at as well.
So you can't say whether they've come forward or...
I can't say at this time.
Brian?
You say we haven't had a murder since August. What do you think has tripped the the lull and turn this back into the way that things were?
That's always a difficult question to answer. I mean, we don't necessarily see this as a lull. We see it as an opportunity to enforce or make enforcement inroad into gang and gun suppression, which we believe the Community Police Service has done a very successful job in doing so. The fact is that we have had shootings, as you've reported widely, since August. Nobody has in fact been killed, but this is, as you quite rightly point out, the first time that an individual has lost his life. We hope it will be the last, obviously, and we'll continue with our efforts to ensure that the community of Bermuda are kept safe, and our intelligence-led policing will continue to make strides into dismantling the gang culture that we still have in Bermuda.
Last two questions, we're going to go Arnold and then go to Taria.
Yeah, Mr. Pedro, this end of the island can be sealed on a land escape by one place. How long did it take to set up someone potentially at Somerset Bridge to check vehicles leaving the area?
That can be done and was done in this matter. That's assuming that the suspect or suspects went that far. You'll appreciate that there are a number of roads in and around the crime scene where persons could have gone to. So yes, that is one of our protocols, but by no means the only means we use to try and detect or apprehend the suspect.
Was there any indication that they left by sea?
There's no indication that anyone left by sea in this particular case at this time.
Taria?
Mr. Ferguson, not assuming that he was in any gang activity, but usually this comes with retaliation. What has the police set up to prevent this?
Once again, I've said this before, we believe that the violence such as this is delivered by and committed by a small number of unprincipled individuals who are bent on violence, and often this can result in reprisals. Once again, I appeal personally for calm. Let the police do the investigation. We have demonstrated over the last 12 months that we can catch, we can convict, and people will be sent to prison for a long time. That is our job, and that is the job we do very well. So all I would say is re-emphasising the fact it is our job, and we will continue to do that. And if people feel they need to take the law into their own hands, I would turn to the fact that we will catch and convict those in exactly the same way.
Members of the media, thank you very much for your time. We'll ensure that you get a copy of the prepared notes in due